So in addressing the questions that I have raised, states have begun to build a new global implementation agenda. The keystone of this agenda is the evolution of a strong and sustainable state mechanism for implementation, reporting, and follow-up. Such a mechanism helps to build national resilience, it narrows the implementation gap, it contributes to the prevention of human rights violations, and it eases the reporting burden for states.
I am a testament to the need to have an NMIRF because I had the experience of working for government at the first instance with the Attorney General's office. And in there we were tasked of the first UPR reporting. And the NMIRF didn't exist then. And you can imagine the struggle that we had the committee that we had to try and collect information.
The governments have several development frameworks that they are required to implement to meet the development goals of a country. These can be seen in the Sustainable Development Goals, the National Development Plan, as well as the human rights treaties that the governments have ratified. So the National Mechanism on Reporting, Implementation and Follow-up is a way of bringing these different frameworks together so that the government can look at it holistically and effectively implement these different frameworks.
When we look at human rights, conventional human rights treaties, yes, it's a challenge for small island states in particular, with limited resources and limited capacity and stuff. We established what they call the Kiribati National Human Rights Task Force, and that has become more like a working group that sort of try to progress all these outstanding reports and implement most of the activities.
It's a country-driven body that's owned by the country, and even put all the line ministries into access into all sort of informations that they need from all the data that we have been collecting and compiling.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to national mechanisms. They can be tailor-made to fit a particular country context and build on existing structures and strengths within that country. However, national mechanisms across all countries do have common roles and features, and these were discussed and agreed within the Pacific context at the Nandi Dialogue of Pacific Island States in 2019, and subsequently turned into the Pacific Principles.
In 2016 was the second time that we had presented our Universal Periodic Review Report to the Human Rights Council. And so following that, we came back home and established the Human Rights Task Force. Since then, we have been following this work plan. It really facilitates how we get our lead agencies together to assess some of the outstanding things that we need to do. So that's why it's important to have the monitoring framework, because it also eases the burden, the reporting burden on us.
It's important to the people of Vanuatu. We have an implementation matrix for implementing not only UPR recommendations, but all recommendations under each of the conventions as well. So this is a big task ahead of us. So these are the government's commitments in ensuring that the provisions of the conventions are being implemented for its people.
The National Mechanism for Implementation, Reporting and Follow-up is a collection of different government ministries and agencies coming together to look at the government's commitment and obligation and finding effective ways of implementing them, including things like identifying the gaps, reporting on the implementation of these different frameworks, as well as they can also use technology to help them do this work. So there's technology that's available that the government can use to help them to track, to monitor, as well as to collect information for reporting purposes and also for planning.
We have established a web tool that we call Sadata, which assists us a lot in meeting our reporting obligations. The use of Sadata is really for us to see how far we have achieved the indicators that we have determined for ourselves. So they're performance measures on how we have implemented some of these instruments. And my ministry coordinates the necessary information in order for us to compile our report. And we also use that to then feed into other task forces in the country to provide an explanation of the implementation of initiatives and projects that are associated with human rights conventions. The NHRI goes beyond government and looks and works with societies and the communities, and it's not so focused on the statistical evidence and the indicators, because they get responses from all members of society, whether it's anecdotal evidence or simply listening to the different feedback from the different stakeholders. Hopefully one supports the other.